fourth point. And this is a stepping stone. The fourth ingredient is pictured in verse 29, where Isaac says to Jacob, may the nations serve you, the people bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers. May the sons of your mother bow to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. Isaac is helping him to raise his sights and see that he has a bright future. God has this glorious future for our kids. Everybody is to be somebody. Listen, I don't care what roots you came from. I don't care what you failed at. I don't care what trailer park you crawled out, what rock you crawled. I don't care. God has something for you that's phenomenal. God is calling you. And this is probably the most important thing any parent can do, is what it says in Proverbs. It says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. There is spiritual application there. It says, teaching them the things of God, and when they're old, they won't forsake God. Something has become very apparent to me in America. We're not satisfied. There's a lack of satisfaction. Satisfaction. Thank you, Chris. There's this lack. There's an unthankfulness. There's an ungratitude. It comes back, I know I'm sounding like a broken record, it comes back to the consumerism of our faith. Nothing's good enough. Wait a minute. God of glory has stepped out of heaven to die for us, that we might have absolute liberty, absolute freedom, to become whatever he has designed us to become.
Yeah, but the coffee's mediocre.
Yes. Or the music's mediocre. Or they're not friendly enough. Or what, anyway, we won't go there. But here, you got to get a picture of this. God has something unique for everybody to do. And will only get done if you do it. Do you hear that? God's plan and purpose and time cannot be functioning without the instrumentality of man. Nothing will get done if we don't do it. Listen, not everybody can be Spurgeon or Billy Graham or Billy Sunday or Robbie Zachariah, scary guy. Love him. Brilliant. Not everybody can be a Mike Lacona. Speak dead languages fluently.
What's the title of four? What's the title of four?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Bright future.
Show
them the bright future of God.
Show them the bright future that God has for them. But listen, every single human being who comes to Christ, God has something spectacular for them to do. Now think about this for a second. You say, well, what do you mean by that? Think about this for a second. What if the only thing God ever called you to do was to reach somebody for Christ? That's not spectacular. You helped somebody else get into heaven. That's the most phenomenal thing anyone can ever do. To serve somebody is not spectacular. I have a story here that, a couple stories I want to share with you in closing that I think really drive these points home. The mistake most of us make as parents is we try to get our children to become what we want them to be, other than what God made them to be. We make this mistake as spiritual leaders too. We see somebody and we say, hey, they can do this. Well, maybe God has not called them to do this. Listen, we're all scaffolding. We're all here for a reason and purpose, and we're all a work in process. In the movie Dead Poets Society, anybody see the movie Dead Poets Society?
Y'all.
Anybody ever been to St. Andrews? I was a part of a church years ago. They used to actually rent out the park on St. Andrews. It's in Middletown, Delaware. It's a private school. That's where they filmed Dead Poets Society. Long story. But anyway, there was a boy who wanted very much to be an actor when he grew up, but his father wanted him to be a doctor. The school put on this play, and his father reluctantly attended. His son was the star of the play and did such an outstanding job that he was getting a standing ovation at the end of the play. After the play was over, his father took his son home and said, I'm not going to let you waste your time to be an actor. I'm going to take you out of this school tomorrow and send you to a military academy. because I want you to be a doctor. That night, his son committed suicide. I'll tell you another story. This one really touched my heart. There's this little girl named Sandra who was raised in this little adobe house in a rural area of New Mexico. No running water, no electricity. In fact, her mom and dad had to drive to El Paso, 200 miles away, so mom could be in the hospital when Sandra was born. Because they were so far away from any school, Sarah's parents had to homeschool her. They ordered a variety of magazines to expose her to the outside world, and she grew up in a very wholesome, creative environment. Her fondest memories of family were the times when mom and dad took the whole family on vacation to visit state capitals. They went to every state capitol building and climbed their domes west of the Mississippi. When Sandra graduated from high school, she went to Stanford University and graduated with honors. We're talking about Sandra Day O'Connor, first woman to ever be seated on the Supreme Court of the United States. The story's near and dear to my heart because I dated a girl in high school whose passion in life was becoming the first female woman lawyer or judge on the Supreme Court, which got railroaded just a few years thereafter. But here's the thing. Because her mom and dad cared enough to help her to see herself in the image which God created her, and then they encouraged her to be all that she could be. Listen, maybe our kids aren't gifted or intelligent enough to be a Supreme Court justice. Regardless, God's got something important for them to do, and we have to pass on the value, we have to pass on the vision. We need to do this in our kids' lives. You need to be, listen, all of you've got nephews and nieces. Listen, we all have the crazy family tree, you know? We all have nieces and nephews that we need to be speaking into these points. All of us, maybe we don't have any kids whatsoever. Maybe you have no nieces and nephews. But there are people in the church that are younger brothers and sisters that you need to be speaking these things into. It's about being dads. The Bible says, I'm going to make you father of many nations. He's not talking about, you're going to have a lot of kids. Joe and I were a young couple. We were at a prayer breakfast for small group leaders in church we were in. And the visiting pastor was from Church of the Rock in Rockwall, Texas. He was a good old boy. And we were on our knees, we were praying. And he came over and laid hands on us and said, I see a nursery. You're going to give birth to thousands. God is going to use you to parent, to be a mom and dad to people who don't have moms and dads. This guy's praying over us. By the way, this was like within a week or two of me discovering that I could never have kids. Okay? So this was like shock and awe in my life. What were you talking about? You know? Listen. We're called, all of us, to be a blessing. All of us. Pass on that blessing to a generation. Challenge this morning, if you're a dad, live up to it. If you don't have kids, find some kids to mentor. You don't have to be a dad to be a dad. Hey, learn from this, talk about this, unpack this, hang out with some people. Listen, one of the coolest things you can do as a young couple is hang out with people who are older couples who've gone through the wars. Because we can teach you what not to do. You know, don't do what I do what I say, because what I've done is stupid. See young guys all the time. Don't go down that alley. No, there's broken glass. People will bug you. Don't go down there. Proudly walk down. Get mugged. Love you. You really do. I want the best for you. I want you to see and get excited about what God has for your life. I want you to be able to look at your kids, look at your spiritual kids, and pass that blessing on.